Busch Gardens Williamsburg, a European-themed park in Virginia with a variety of modern rides. From Apollo's chariot towering over the Italian skies, to the mysterious Alpengeist haunting over the German Alps, they seem to have it all. However, none of these would have happened if it wasn't for a certain monster that has been terrorizing park guests since the late 70s. What is that monster's name, you ask? The Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster is a custom aero looper that opened in the Scotland section of the park in 1978. The ride opened as the world's tallest roller coaster and featured the first, and now only remaining pair of interlocking loops in the world. Nessie stands at a total height of 130 feet tall and reaches speeds up to 60 miles per hour. Loch Ness also features over 3,200 feet of track, 2 separate lift hills, and 2 inversions. The coaster is without a doubt an iconic piece of history, however does it still hold up compared to the modern rides of Busch Gardens? Find out in this review. You start off by boarding one of the 2 7-car trains that feature 2 cross seating and an over-the-shoulder restraint. After having your restraint checked, you then dispatch out of the station and traverse a semi-long pre-lift section. The pre-lift consists of a small dip and a few turns and is actually pretty high off the ground. You then start to climb the first lift hill. The lift moves pretty slowly, so it might take a minute to reach the top. However, while you're waiting, you can listen to the amazing sounds of the aero anti-rollbacks. Once you reach the top of the lift, you're greeted with some amazing views of the Italian section of the park before going down a small pre-drop and a quick 90-degree left-hand turn. You then plummet down the ride's 115-foot drop, and what an underrated moment this is. In the back rows, you get 2 seconds of some of the strongest ejector airtime I've ever experienced, and in the front you get breathtaking views while plunging into the river. While pulling out of the drop, the ride does rattle a bit, causing you to bounce around. However, there's nothing too bad. After the drop, you then rise into the coaster's turnaround. This turnaround is an elongated 180-degree turn and gives you a nice breather after that crazy drop. After the 180-degree turn, you then once again drop towards the river, giving a pop of ejector airtime in the back rows. Following the drop, you then curve into Nessie's first vertical loop. This loop pounds you with intensity while entering and exiting the element, and even gives you some minor hang time at the highest point. The loop also gives a really cool spectacle as it wraps around the second loop, which is still to come. After the loop, you then rise back up the hill, and front row riders are treated with a quick pop of ejector airtime while leveling out. You then go through a small right-hand turn before popping into the mid-course brake run. After the mid-course, you then begin to enter the monster's lair. While inside the lair, you go through a double helix. This is sadly probably the worst part in the ride, as these helixes can be pretty rough, causing some headbanging. After exiting the cave, you then pop into the ride's second lift hill. This lift is not quite as tall as the first one, however you don't seem to realize how high you actually are due to the park's terrain. Once you reach the top of the lift, you then go down a small pre-drop and a right-hand turn before falling into the third large drop. This drop once again gives good ejector airtime in the back rows, however this is probably the weakest out of the 3. After the drop, you then rocket into the ride's second and final vertical loop. This loop is located inside of the previous one and feels very similar to it as well. It gives good intensity and a great spectacle, however it doesn't give a pop of hang time like the first one. After the loop, you then rise into Loch Ness's brake runs. You have escaped the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster doesn't have the best ride time, with the total time between the drop and final brake run being only 1 minute and 35 seconds. However, when you are on it, seems to last forever. Now to get into some of the problems that people have with the ride. The first major problem with the Loch Ness Monster is the ride's roughness. Nessie will definitely shake you around a little bit, specifically at the bottom of the drop and inside the cave. However, I find it to be as smooth as you can get for a 44-year-old coaster. The roughness, however, is definitely still there, but people make it seem worse than it actually is. The second problem people have with the coaster is the ride's pacing. With 2 lift hills and some dull moments on the ride, it definitely has pacing issues, but it doesn't personally affect me. Loch Ness is not meant to be packed with intensity from start to finish, it is meant to take you on a journey. Because of that, I find this issue to be pretty nitpicky. Now with all of that out of the way, let's move on to Nessie's final score. But before I give my final rating on the coaster, I would like to ask you to all consider subscribing. I'm still a very new channel to YouTube, and subscribing just helped me so much. Anyways, to get back on topic, I give Loch Ness a score of 8.5 out of 10. For being a 44-year-old coaster, Loch Ness is really as good as it gets. This ride is one of my personal favorites, and I even rank it over some of the newer coasters in the park like Alpengeist and Griffin. Anyways, that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed, maybe consider subscribing. As I stated earlier, subscribing just helped me so much, and I'm so close to 100. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.